welcome to this episode of our program Arab Affairs. As usual, we will be discussing an important Arab file. Today we'll be speaking about the pivotal role played by Egypt in preserving the stability of the Middle East. Egypt has been being the center balance of the Middle East and the African continent. It has tried to preserve the unity, the security, the stability of the Middle East as after it ended its war and started to take the burden of protecting the Middle East. This has been, of course, very much obvious during the Palestinian cause, during decades of the long process, and definitely in different situations, in different crises that took place. The Egyptian policy was always having the political solution to any crisis. Moreover, that has been very much obvious during the latest crises that came into the Middle East. One of those was the latest flare of exchanging fire between Lebanon and Israel, rather when Israel started striking Lebanon. Egypt has definitely and always taking its role as the protector to the stability and the one who has always been interfering for stabilizing the situation, has issued a foreign ministry statement saying that it is supporting Lebanon in all the situation, and saying that it calls for restraints and for issues to calm down. We'll be speaking about the Egyptian role in the Middle East, particularly of how Egypt is a cornerstone to the stability of the country. We'll be speaking about the situation in Lebanon and much more in our episode. Before we delve into our discussion, let's first have a quick look on the Arab news that took place during this week, and we'll come back for more discussion.
Syrian government defenses confronted drones headed towards a key airbase of government ally Russia in northwest Syria on the fourth day of a ceasefire in the region. Syrian state media said that the sounds that were heard over the city of Latakia are the result of defense confronting drones dispatched by terrorists in the de-escalation area towards the Humaymim base. The government held the coastal city of Latakia and Russia's Humaymim air base lie to its west. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a British-based monitor, said that there was no immediate report of casualties. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that his country may have to open the route for migrants into Europe if Ankara did not receive sufficient international support to deal with the Syrian refugees. In a speech in Ankara, Erdogan also said that Turkey was determined to create a safe zone in northwest Syria in partnership with the United States by the end of September, but was prepared to act alone if necessary. Earlier, Erdogan lashed out at pressure on some countries, including his own, not to acquire missiles with nuclear warheads. Campaigning for Tunisia's presidential elections opened last Monday with 26 candidates vying to replace late leader Al-Baji Qaid al-Sibsi. 7 million Tunisians are expected to head to the ballot boxes in September 15th poll, which was brought forward from November following al-Sibsi's death in July. He had been elected in the wake of 2011 uprising that overthrew former President Zain al-Abidine bin Ali. Saudi Arabia issued a stern warning to Yemeni separatists who have seized key parts of the south, saying that any attempt to destabilize Yemen amounted to a threat to the kingdom. Riyadh demanded separatists return captured military and civilian facilities to the Yemeni government while renewing calls for dialogue. The official Saudi media said that the kingdom stressed that any attempt to destabilize Yemen would be dealt with firmly. It added that the kingdom affirmed its position that there was no alternative to the legitimate government government in Yemen. The security belt forces, dominated by the Southern Transitional Council, took control of the southern city of Aden, which has served as the government's base since it was ousted from the capital Sana'a by the Houthi rebels in 2014. Sudan's Prime Minister announced the formation of the first government since the signing of a power-sharing deal signed last month. In a press conference late on Thursday, Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok announced the names of 18 ministers in the new cabinet and said that he would name 2 more later. Hamdok said that the new government would start its own work immediately in a harmonious and collective way. Most of the 18 ministers were approved earlier this week. The cabinet includes 4 women, among them Asma Abdullah, who becomes the country's first female foreign minister. Among the challenges facing Hamdok's government are finding billions in funding to cover the country's bill for importing basic goods like fuel and flour.
Be the first to know. The news live at the site of the event. Information on events as they are happening. If it's breaking news, it's Nile TV.
Right, welcome back. At the very beginning, we'll be speaking about the situation in Lebanon, how Egypt has been always playing a pivotal role in preserving the stability of the Middle East. And recently, the Egyptian trials in order to find some of the solutions to some of the crises in the Middle East, and recently Lebanon, the situation there. Let me welcome our distinguished guest, Mrs. Suzzei Geneidi, Deputy Editor-in-Chief of Al-Ahram Al-Arabi magazine. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, dear. Nice always to meet you.
The pleasure is all mine. If we start with, let me take Egypt's pivotal role in the Middle East first, before we start with Lebanon and the latest developments there. How is Egypt a cornerstone to stability of the Middle East?
Yeah, this is very important, of course. Egypt is playing a very, very processive role, a very understandable role of how the stability of the Middle East is a cornerstone. It's a very important thing here in the Middle East to have stability, because instability in any part of the Middle East will cause, actually, most of the world will pay. Not only the Middle East will pay the price. So that's why what happened recently in Lebanon and Israel, for instance, there was a quick Egyptian role to calm down the situation. Of course, as we know, the Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry have called the Prime Minister, the Lebanese Prime Minister Saad al-Hariri, talking about the escalation that happened, first of all from Israel, and then after that from Hezbollah. Also, Walid Gumblat, a distinguished Lebanese and the head of the Socialist Party in Lebanon, visited Egypt, and this is, I think, the second visit for him in this year, because he was here also in January, mid-January. So he met with the President Sisi, and he met with Sameh Shoukry, the Foreign Minister. So Egypt has had a lot of contacts, trying to calm down the situation, because another war is not needed now in this time, in this stage in the Middle East.
No war is needed, actually.
Yes, of
and
course.
We need to,
especially now.
Yes, definitely, and we need also to recover the situation in many other areas in the region.
That's true.
But since you spoke about the meeting of the leader or Lebanon's Progressive Social Party, Walid Gomblat's meeting with President Sisi, first let's watch the report on the situation in Lebanon and the meeting, and we'll come back for more discussion.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met on Thursday with visiting head of Lebanon's Progressive Socialist Party, Walid Gomblat. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi said that during the meeting, President el-Sisi reaffirmed the depth of the Egyptian-Lebanese ties. The president also expressed Egypt's keenness on Lebanon's peace and security. During the meeting, President el-Sisi hailed Gomblat's efforts in preserving the country's stability. The talks also covered the situation in Syria and the latest developments in the Palestinian territories. The president reiterated Egypt's stance in support of the Palestinian people in efforts to regain their rights according to the relevant international resolutions. The talks also covered Egypt's efforts to achieve the Palestinian reconciliation as a main pillar for protecting the Palestinians' unity, in addition to working on improving the living conditions for the people in the Gaza Strip. For his part, Gomblat expressed his country's keenness on boosting the Egyptian-Lebanese relations. The Lebanese politician expressed his appreciation for Egypt's support for Lebanon in all fields.
Welcome back, and back to you, Mrs. Suzzei. And this was the visit of the Lebanon's Progressive Social Party, Walid Gomblat, and his meeting with President el-Sisi. Definitely, the president expressed Egypt's keenness on Lebanon's peace and stability. The first thing the president expressed it during the meeting. How do you view the choice of Gomblat to come to Egypt, and so the president set this meeting in order to speak about Lebanon's developments?
Well, Gomblat and the Druze in Lebanon is a strong, actually, fiction in Lebanon. I can't say that they are facing Hezbollah. They are not, actually. The important thing here is what the Arab League have said in its statement. It's very important to have unity between all of the Lebanese, because this is the thing that will make Lebanon succeed and win in any coming progressions or any coming problems they are facing. The unity of the Lebanese is very important, and this point actually Egypt have been assuring and asking for it. Gomblat and the Progressive Socialist Party is an important fiction in Lebanon, actually. Of course, Hezbollah is also an important fiction. They have a military upper hand in some areas in Lebanon. So that's why it's very important to have dialogue between Lebanese people, and also to have a certain aim for all Lebanese, not an aim for Hezbollah and an aim for other Lebanese. Of course, the relation between Hezbollah and Iran has its positive and negative aspects, actually, on the situation in Lebanon. After the war in 2006, July, I think, in 2006, between Lebanon and Israel, there was a bit of agreement. It wasn't a written agreement, but a bit of agreement that there is certain points that we should not exceed. Okay, so what Israel have done, I think, is something, as we can say, it's an aggression. I think it's aggressive with no meaning, or they have the aim that they are not talking about, the Israelis, because it was a two-drone plane with explosives. They had in it explosives, and they were heading to certain points that is related to Hezbollah in Lebanon. Why did they do this? What was the aim? They didn't talk about. The Israelis didn't.
And they just traded or exchanged fire for some days, but not to a very high escalation. And then, since last Sunday, and things have been calm, or the borders have been calm.
The borders have been calm, but you can't guarantee that it will still be calm for the next coming months, because Israel has its own aims. Israel doesn't want Hezbollah on its borders. So that's why they are pushing the United States of America to push Iran, to pressure Iran more, to pressure Syria more, so that they can get rid of Hezbollah in any coming agreement concerning the situation in Syria. This is very important for Israel. So the aim of Israel in what they did, I think it was a message. We are not going to forget this problem of Hezbollah. We want the whole world to again reconsider this. And the most, I think in my own perspective, the most important thing was, I think this was an assassination thing. I think they were aiming at killing a certain person or a certain, I don't know.
Let's say that these are speculations, right?
Yes, of course. This
Because
is
we
my
don't really
perspective.
know.
This is my escalation. Because why did they do this? Why? And
Exactly.
one of the airplanes actually didn't fulfill its mission. It was captured. Yes. Let's see. And then after that, they understand. The Israelis understand very well that Hezbollah is not going to keep silent. So there was a reaction from Hezbollah. Of course, they said, Netanyahu, as he said, there was no one even scratch in any soldier, Israeli soldiers, because they have put in a puppet or certain, not soldiers actually, in the grenade that they have, the Hezbollah hit. Hezbollah said no, there were certain casualties from the Israeli soldiers. It's a minor thing, we don't know exactly, but as we can understand, it was not a very big, as we can say,
things were not really spread and turned
it was an
into
experiment, if you can say so.
It
was a message and an experiment, or something from the Israelis to see how can they reassure the whole world that they will not forget Hezbollah, and also they were hitting something, and Hezbollah had his reaction. We hope that calm is going to be
prevail
stability.
Definitely,
but the Egypt rule was very important.
Before reaching this conclusion, let me ask you, because things here we're speaking about two matters, two important matters. We're speaking about the situation inside Lebanon and different factions, and how this is really hurting the Lebanese unity and stability. This is from one side. We're speaking also about the tit-for-tat Hezbollah-Israel hit every now and then. Skirmishes have been going on even after the 2006 month-long war. And this is really a real threat to Lebanon and its stability. So if we speak about the components of the stability of Lebanon or inside Lebanon, and you spoke about a very important point, which is weapons and military capability. And that only exists within two entities, the Lebanese army and Hezbollah. And I guess that all the Arabs have been calling for the militarization of Hezbollah, or that they should be giving up the weapons or join the Lebanese army.
Yes, joining the Lebanese army
Yes.
was asked actually, but this is not easy. Hezbollah is related to Iran, and Iran is using a lot of fictions in the Arab world, Al-Housiyin in Yemen, and of course Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria. So it's not easy for Iran to get rid of this very important upper hand for it in certain Arab countries. Of course, Hezbollah joining the military, the Lebanese military, is important. But is this practical? Are they going or willing to do this? I doubt it. They are not going to do this. The unity of the Lebanese is very important, but the stability is very important. If you can't reach,
even important.
If you can't reach unity between all the Lebanese friction now in this stage, then at least have stability. It's very important. Israel doesn't want Lebanon to be stable. They want to get rid of Hezbollah by any cost, you know. So that's why, by any cost, they are not going to pay, you know. By any cost, other frictions are going to pay.
The problem is the inability to be able to unite at this particular stage in Lebanon. That is a pretext to Israel in itself to escalate and to find its own reasons to hit more Hezbollah as an entity or as a terrorist entity, because Hezbollah is known and is recognized by, for an instance, the United States as a terrorist entity.
Yeah, this is a very important point. I disagree on it, which is, even if Hezbollah are considered terrorists, Israel doesn't have no right to hit Lebanon. This is another country. They are hitting another country, so they are violating the Security Council 1701, and that's why Lebanon have asked the Security Council to have a say in what happened. You know, it's another country, and they didn't do anything to you, so why do you go inside? As a situation in other country, I can say, for instance, that certain fiction in Israel is terrorist group, and I go and hit it. It's the problem of the own country. But the point is,
just remind you of something, because you're speaking about resolutions regarding Lebanon, right? How about the 338 and 242? And how about the occupation of Israel to Golan? And how about the annexation of Jerusalem? And how about all the international laws that were really violated by Israel?
Okay, but does this give Israel the right to go inside another country and just hit it with no reason at all?
As long as the international community is silent? Anyway, that's not our
not the international community, if we can say the United States. Not all the international community are with Israel doing these aggressions. But, you know, Israel has an coming elections in September, in this month. Netanyahu wanted to do something to actually reassure that he's going to be re-elected. So this may be hitting certain places for Hezbollah in Lebanon. If it succeeded as they wanted, then it will actually increase his possibility of being re-elected.
And that also is another issue to speak about. I mean here that during the G7 there was the Iranian foreign minister who went to France during the G7, and he met with the French president, and they spoke about the nuclear agreement. He did not really meet with the US president. However, after the meeting, the US president said that he doesn't really want to escalate with Iran, and that there are chances for more discussions, but that will be postponed until the elections, the US elections. And that was in itself a message for calming down this tension that was in the Middle East then between the US and Iran.
It's not calming down. It's trying to find a way to calm down. France and Japan and other countries, Oman, for instance, are trying to reach certain point where it will not escalate the problems between Iran and United States, and try to keep the agreement, the nuclear agreement, on the table. So what happened in the G7 in France was that Zarif, the Iranian foreign minister, suddenly went and met with French officials. They said after that there will be a meeting coming, next meeting between the Iranian president and the American president. And they said they are going to try to make this meeting come true. So we are waiting to see this tete-a-tete negotiations between Iran and certain other countries to try to reach a point that they can meet on the table officially, not Trump and maybe the Iranian president, but maybe foreign ministers, for instance, or others officials. The point is, Iran wants to eliminate the boycott before, or the things that are causing it economic problems in Iran a lot, regardless of the agreement between the EU that the United States actually signed on it and then came out of it. Iran wants to, as they are thinking of the bizarre way, or not bizarre, I'm sorry, the bazaar way, which is the merchant way of how can I get from you most price so that we can sit. But I think at the end, they are going to sit on the table and negotiate, the Americans and the Iranians. And that's why Israel now is escalating the problems with Hezbollah. They want to escalate the problems more, but unfortunately the aim was not fulfilled.
This is why I was just I was telling the background of this G7 meeting, so I can come to conclusion, which is the escalation just took place as the G7 ended, and just after Mr. Trump made those announcements of calming down the situation with Iran.
Yes.
And that is in itself a big question mark to what does Israel intend to do at this upcoming stage in terms of escalation with the so-called Iranian pose?
I think Israel will continue its tactics, which is they don't want negotiations between Iran and the United States. They want the stereotype about Iran that it's a nuclear terrorist country to continue, so that they can have the right to hit back, even if they are not actually affected directly. So that's why they will try to exclude any meeting between the United States and Iran. They are going to try to sabotage any mentoring trying to from other countries like France, for instance, or Japan or any other country. They don't want this. They want more escalation because they want to get rid of Hezbollah from Syria, and they want the whole world to say that's your right. Until this stage, the whole world is not saying it's the Israeli right to go and interfere militarily in Lebanon. Until now. Still, they will continue to say we are defending ourselves, and some of the countries in the world are giving them this right, and they are hitting Hezbollah. The point here, what happened 2 days ago is, or 3 days ago, was that, was this your right? They didn't do anything. Hezbollah didn't made anything that could make you go and hit. But this is not the first time. This is not the first time. The Israelis are using the right to defend themselves and just hitting Hezbollah to have Hezbollah hit back. And if the Hezbollah would have killed, for instance, about 10 soldiers, the Israelis are going to go inside very aggressively. Unfortunately, Netanyahu wanted to do this, but he was told there is no soldier was being affected. It's just
in fact, in 2006, as we remember, Hezbollah came out with kidnapping some Israeli soldiers. It all started like this.
Yes, but they had the intentions.
And
the
yes.
Israelis had the intentions,
Yes,
and they
definitely.
used this.
Definitely, and then
Lebanon.
escalation went on.
Yes.
But this time nobody was kidnapped, not even one
Hezbollah
was
didn't
touched.
do anything
So yes,
as used,
this
was
an escalation for a certain reason, unknown reason.
Yes, of course.
Getting back,
political reasons.
maybe political gains that are still unknown and remains to be seen. We need to really wait and see how it will, or how will it show after that. If we get back to the situation, and we said that the situation in Lebanon needs stability, and since we are not speaking about the ability of Hezbollah to join the Lebanese military for its attachment with Iran and all this issue, then how are we speaking about unity inside Lebanon?
As I said, unity inside Lebanon was always a problem, because most of the countries are playing in Lebanon since their civil war and before that and after that. Unfortunately, Lebanon is not a big or a strong country. It's a small country trying to survive.
It's a beautiful,
it's a very
small
beautiful
country. Yes, it is.
It's and the people, the Lebanese people, are very decent and nice people. But unfortunately, they don't have a great or a strong military power as other countries surrounding it. They were invaded by Syria, they had problems, so unity is not very strong in Lebanon, unfortunately. They are trying, because they have paid a very high cost
because
since the civil war and after that. So that's why they are trying, actually, the Lebanese, but it's not easy. You had a lot of frictions inside Lebanon, and some of them are actually against each other because of political reasons. So, but they, as a country, as a stable country, we hope the best for Lebanon. We hope stability in Lebanon. We hope unity to the Lebanese, or most of them if they can. And we'll wait and see what is going to happen in the next few months. But I guess its stability is not easy. It's not easy in this situation in the Middle East with these problems with Iran. If there will be more negotiations, will be more settling of the problems, which I doubt it will happen easily between Iran and the United States, then maybe we're going to wait and see. Maybe there will be more stability, because it's not only the Lebanese unity that will solve the Lebanon problem, because it's a lot of other countries surrounding it, or not surrounding it, but have upper hand, that's causing the problem. It's not only the Lebanese, unfortunately.
Yes, so if we're speaking about different countries who have hands into the situation in Lebanon. We spoke about Iran, and we spoke about Israel. How about Syria, and what's going on in Syria, and how does this reflect on Lebanon?
Of course.
How about the Palestinian issue,
yes,
and its reflection definitely on Lebanon, and
of course,
it's being part of the big...
Yes, a lot of refugees, Palestinian refugees inside Lebanon, causing problems, of course. The Syrian problem is causing a lot of problems inside Lebanon. But that's why I'm telling you, stability in Lebanon is not easy. They are trying, actually, but it's not only in the hand of the Lebanese. It's what is happening around them affect them severely, unfortunately. We'll wait and see, but the Syrian problem, actually, in its core, is a big problem, not only to Lebanon, actually, to other countries in the Middle East. Until now, there is no real solution to what's happening in Syria. Of course, the situation is a bit calmer than it used to be, but still, the situation in Syria could just blow any time. The Russians, the Americans, Iranians, Turkey, a lot of players, unfortunately, and they have reached a bit of agreement that we don't want the situation to be more accelerated. So that's why they are trying to calm the situation in Syria and try to reach actually an agreement in the coming few months, I hope, but I doubt it, unfortunately. I doubt it.
How do you view the Egyptian role in trying to maintain the balance of the situation in the Middle East? How is the Egyptian diplomacy trying to be a fair and wise mediator towards the situation?
Egypt has its own strategic aims, which is very important. It was said all the time, and that's why Egypt is aiming all the time for it, which is try to reserve the state, try to reserve to keep the military, try to keep the situation calm and stable, and the security of the people in any country, Arab country. They have asked for this all the time, mention it with all most of the statements that President Sisi have said in an international events. He have assured that this is the Egyptian actually aim, and this is the Egyptian strategy for the people and the Middle East countries, which is try to reserve the state, try to reserve the borders, try to reserve the military and the
strong institutions inside
institutions, yes, inside any country to assure that the people will be secured and can live safely as they can. So this is very important. Egypt has been trying to play a very positive role to fulfill and reach this aim. Actually, a lot of Egyptian talking to and negotiating with a lot of different frictions in different Arab countries whenever there is a problem. Of course, trying to reserve the security of the Gulf country is a very important aim to Egypt also. Try to help whenever they can any Arab country who ask for help from Egypt. Trying to actually make more stability in the Middle East, because this is a very important role and very important aim that the Egyptian role is playing in the Middle East. We hope the best, of course, but the situation on the ground, I'm not so optimistic, unfortunately, yes. But we go wait and see.
Last time when President Sisi met with the G7, we know that the G7 is one of the most important meetings that occur every year, and it's very important taking place because they say that they shape up the future of the world at this meeting. Anyway, this time the President has attended the G7, and we have seen a very intensified meetings with all the G7 leaders. Every meeting the President held, he was very much keen on trying to exactly show the real situation on the ground in the Middle East and put before the leaders the causes and even put their solutions. How far do you think the wise statements or the wise speech of the President was able to be grasped by the G7 leaders?
Of course, the statements and what President Sisi have said in all of the meetings, bilateral meetings, or in the statements that he said in the conference is very important, and it shows the real Egyptian diplomacy in the Middle East and in Africa also, because of course he was the voice of Africa in this summit. Some countries understand and actually are helping, and others are not. Every country is searching for its own interests as they can see it. So we have different attitudes and different reactions from France to Italy to the United States to different
Germany,
countries concerning,
Japan.
yes, of course, concerning certain issues. For instance, concerning Libya, France and Italy have different way of dealing with what's happening in Libya, for instance. The French way is a bit near to the Egyptian perspective. The Italian way is different, or the Italian way of dealing with with the Lebanese problem is a bit different, of course, or different than what Egypt and France can see. The United States also, there was a meeting between President Sisi and President Trump, and it was a very important meeting in the G7 in France, and I think there will be another meeting, maybe, if I can say so, in the United Nations, in the meetings coming in September in the United States, in New York. We will wait and see, maybe there will be another meeting between President Trump and President Sisi. This is very important. Those meetings are very important because it puts on the table the Egyptian perspective, and you listen to the other way of thinking on certain problems concerning the Middle East or Africa, and the bilateral relations between Egypt and those countries is very important also. So it's a very important meetings also. And the point is, it is the media all over the world is covering these events. So what you say in these events is very important. In those events is very important. It's very important that President Sisi's statements was said loudly, clearly about the Egyptian perspective and the Egyptian way of thinking concerning certain problems, the Palestinian problems, the Lebanese, the Syrians, the African problems, others.
Libyan, Yemeni, all those, the Middle East and Africa.
International
focus,
problems, yes, that we are facing in the world. So
terrorism definitely was a center stage.
Most of the media actually cover this, so that the whole world is listening and seeing what's Egyptian role in this. If we are talking just here in Egypt, then the media is not covering it 100% as it is covering in the G7s, for instance, or before in the G20. So those were very important meetings that Egypt attended, and also the TICAD, for instance, between Japan and the African country. And we have, I think, another coming between Russia in October, Russia and African countries, so meetings. So those are very important international meetings that Egypt attended this year. And it was said the Egyptian way of thinking, the Egyptian perspective concerning a certain important problems in the Middle East, in Africa, in the whole world.
Unfortunately, I have to end it here because they've been telling me that I have to end.
It was a pleasure.
But I have to say that this discussion about the Egyptian diplomacy has to continue on, since we're speaking about a real wise mediator and a real very, very vision or with integrity. Anyway, Mrs. Suzzei Geneidi, Deputy Editor-in-Chief of Al-Ahram Al-Arabi magazine, we thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, dear. It was a pleasure for me. Thank you. Hope the best.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice day.
Dear viewers, many thanks for watching. Next Saturday would be another important Arab file. Until then, it's goodbye.